Good morning, everybody. Welcome to AAHAA Supportive Housing What's Up Wednesdays podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hampton, with the wonderful Rachel that has chosen to join us today and share her story and testimony about her journeys and her discovery of, hey, I kind of want to do something different. She's going to talk about what led her to those moments, how she got here, where she's at now, and what she does to maintain what she has. So without further introduction or further conversation, here's Rachel. Thanks for joining us, Rachel. Thank you for coming today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So tell me, how long have you been sober now?
Let's see. 2 years, 10 months, and 11 days.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You keep track of that like that.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me what led you to maybe when you started using, at what age, and then kind of the series of events that happened to you to bring you to this point.
Sure. My goodness, it goes way back. I grew up in a household without many boundaries, where sex, drugs, and rock and roll was the name of the game. And so I grew up thinking that everybody drank and used drugs and partied. And so at 14, I tried my first hit of acid and smoked marijuana. And then by 16, I had tried speed and cross tops. And quickly moved to methamphetamines. And by 21, I was a single mom of 2 kids who I didn't want to lose. So I checked myself into a rehab and only stayed 8 days, which I don't recommend. I, as we say in the 12-step program, was 13th stepped by someone in the program. Okay. But I stayed relatively clean. I didn't use methamphetamines for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
And lived a relatively normal life for about 9 years. I married a person in the military, moved overseas, worked in Germany for 2 years, and then learned of contracting in the Middle East and decided I wanted to do that with a very adventurous spirit. And so I went to work in Iraq. I was there for 4 years. I got tired of that, came home, moved to Florida, and then got tired of that and went to Afghanistan for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm from contracting in the end of 2012 and came home in a relationship that went south. And I was already using prescription opiates for chronic pain.
Okay.
And after this relationship went south, I started abusing them and drinking more. And then started bartending just up the road from my house. It was very convenient, and bartended 7 nights a week, and it got exhausting. So I started using cocaine at that point, and basically it was all downhill from there. So from 2013 was when I started abusing opiates, and then my insurance ran out from overseas. So I started buying pills from my customers in the bar and on the street. And they were getting expensive. I discovered you could get a felony in Florida for 1 pill without a prescription on you. And I didn't like the way that sounded. I'd had my record expunged when I was younger. I had a couple of minor misdemeanors, criminal mischief, little things like that. I'd had my record expunged and thought I'd beat addiction at this point. I'm like, oh, I can't get into that kind of trouble. So I looked into alternative pain management and got on a methadone program. That was in 2015. But I was still using, at this point, I had started using crack cocaine and had, so when I was on the methadone program, I was still using that whole time cocaine. And then anytime I didn't make it to the clinic, I would use street opiates, fentanyl, heroin, pills, anything to avoid being sick. And that boiled over into years. So that started in 2013. And in 2015, I was still a quote unquote functional addict. I was doing a lot of work for myself, painting, drywall, things like that, and landed a welding job as a welder helper. And in that time had gone to a different city, had a good connection on the job site to cocaine and started using heavily. And 6 years later, I got fired from that job. Which I never thought I would have a career in my whole life. I never thought there was anything I could commit to for 20 years like that. And I started welding and fabricating, and I absolutely loved it. And then I got released from that job because of basically my attitude. I didn't sleep on a regular schedule. I didn't eat on a regular schedule. I just had such a sour outlook. I was so angry at the world and just had such an F you attitude. And didn't realize it, but it definitely showed. And got let go from that job. 2 months later, I got evicted from my apartment where my rent was only $450 a month, which is ridiculous in this economy. No.
Sure.
And couch surfed for a few months, stayed at a few trap houses, flop houses, checked into the mental hospital for 2 weeks because I was too afraid to sleep on the street. That's always been a big trigger for me, I guess, is stable housing. We moved a lot when I was young. Something I've realized in recovery, that's a big trigger. And and then decided that I couldn't keep going the way I was. And because I didn't have anywhere to stay. I, kept losing. My stuff was getting dug through and stolen. It was gone. Cops are, in and out looking for people. And it was so nerve-wracking. And so I checked into the mental hospital, and they helped me get into a rehab center, drug rehab. And I flunked out of there after 2 months.
Where was this at?
That was in Jacksonville, Florida. In Florida, yeah. So at that point, I couch surfed again for a couple of months. And my biological father lives up here. And I had roped him into sending me money for a few months. And he told me he was retiring and couldn't do that anymore. And he said, but if you move up here, I can help you out. I just bought a trailer. And so that's what brought me here to Washington. I flew here with nothing but the clothes on my back in just utter desperation. I think I cried all the way here. I hadn't slept in days. I'd had all of my belongings stolen. I had a carry-on bag and a backpack with, it was all I had left from a 2-bedroom apartment. And because I had been using with somebody and didn't have any money to give them, they kept my things. So I flew here with nothing but my ID. And it was a rough road getting here. And I got here, I got on a methadone program here with We Care Daily Clinics here in Auburn. And I feel like I owe them my life. At that point, I started to have hope. And that's part of the reason my clean date is so easy for me to remember, because I moved here April 9th and brought just enough fentanyl with me to not be sick for a couple of days. And I went to We Care the 11th. And so I count the 12th as my clean date.
Good for you.
12th of April, yeah. So it sticks in my mind for sure.
Yeah, I could see you're passionate about that.
Yeah. So I got very involved in We Care. I did their IOP classes, their support groups. I would do that from 8 in the morning until about 3:30 in the afternoon. It was almost like school, which was great, because one thing I've discovered with recovery is it's reparenting yourself. It's learning to cope with life in ways you didn't learn growing up. I got involved there. I volunteered. I taught a crochet class at one point. I had peer support. I saw my counselor once a week. I saw my peer once a week. Like I said, I was very involved. I did a lot of journaling, writing. They would give us the flyers and ask questions. And I loved that because it helped me dig out things that I hadn't even thought about, that weren't even in my, in my preview. So, and then We Care helped me get into, I learned about AAHAA housing, through We Care. And, actually had a moment where I realized later I was projecting, but I felt that people were not as interested in helping me as they were pretending to be in my mind. So I came down here to AAHAA myself one day and thought, with that addict arrogance, I'll handle this. I'll make things happen. Came down here and didn't get the results I wanted and stormed out. And it was actually you, Mark, who called me back, which it helps me know that there is something out there. Whether you believe in God or not, I know that I'm not it. There is definitely a power out there, because it's not normal for me to turn around like that if I'm in a huff for somebody I don't know to call my name. Normally I would keep going and forget about it, but something told me to turn around. And today I'm so grateful I did.
Me too.
So I stayed in AAHAA housing for the last nearly a year, and I have to tell the story of coming back in and talking with you and having you relate to me in a way that a lot of people hadn't. And that was being an addict who had a little bit of recovery time under my belt, I had noticed being, like I said, around the recovery community, We Care, and also going to meetings here in Auburn at the Bealato Club. I had seen.
So you had seen something around the recovery group or going to the meetings about being an addict, people reading to you? I'll tell you, I do remember you walking out of here, and I could see you were distressed. I remember that clearly. And I looked at my parents, what's going on? And they said that you got upset about something about housing. And so I remember running outside, and you were walking through the parking lot, and I did call out to you. And as you described that, Rachel, I felt goosebumps because I remember that, how powerful that was, right? And you turned around, and I remember talking to you, and we worked through that moment, right? And it was a powerful moment for me too. It really was.
But I'm glad I brought that up then, because something in my mind just kept, trigger and mention this story, because it was, what I was saying was, I had discovered in recovery that a lot of people fresh in recovery, that a lot of resources are quick to help them. If you're sleeping on the street, of course, they want to get you into housing. And that was not the case for me. And I struggled. And actually, one thing I had said to you was, I feel like if you're new in recovery, everybody's willing to jump in and help you. If you've got long-term recovery, they're like, okay, you're good, you can handle it. But there's kind of this middle ground that I don't feel is being addressed as much, of people that, have done some work and put in a little bit of time, and maybe they don't have the needs of somebody sleeping on the street, but I have mental health struggles. And that was something that I found challenging. And, and I know one thing you said to me that really stood out was, that when you were coming into recovery, you felt like you had to go out and recommit a crime in order to get people to help you. And it was a term I learned a lot about after that. Actually, it's called learned helplessness, where the system teaches us that we'll help you if you're totally helpless, but if you're capable, then you need to stand up on your own 2 feet and do it on your own. So that, there's this disparaging population of people that are struggling. We can do it with a hand up. It's not necessarily a hand out, it's a hand up. And that was what you gave me.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you.
I remember saying the same thing to a counselor one time when I was trying to get some help. And I too was a functioning addict, right? And I remember them saying, well, by the score of the assessment, you can do this without help, right? Yeah. And I'm like, do I have to go out there and commit a crime to get some help? Because that's how I feel right now, that I have to get in trouble to get some help. And I don't know how to do this on my own. I need someone to show me or teach me or work with me, right? Yeah. And so I remember that feeling clearly.
Yeah. It's a disparaging feeling. And it's another thing I learned about in recovery, and that's masking. Growing up in an environment where you don't feel like you can be authentic, you learn how to be something else. And I've realized, to my detriment, when you put on a mask of I'm fine, I'm confident, everything is good. It's like the duck on the water that's frantically paddling underneath, but on top they look calm. I spent my whole life like that. So, well, if you don't show people and you're in distress, how are they going to know to help you? The only way I knew to do that was through anger. Sure. And that was one thing that I was able to work through living in sober living. It is not, it's not a cakewalk. It's difficult living with a bunch of people you don't know. It's difficult living with a roommate as an adult. But having recently moved out, I'm finding the grass is always greener, right? Because I'm missing having somebody there to talk to at 2 a.m. when I wake up and I can't go back to sleep. And she's laying over there in the same condition because, we're all struggling with things that keep us up at night. And, I overslept the other day and had to frantically get ready for work and go to work without washing my hair for the 3rd day because my house is so darn quiet. When there was a bunch of people in the house scrambling around in the morning, inevitably somebody woke me up on time. Sure. So I'm finding that while there were cons, there were also pros to living with a whole bunch of strangers. And not to mention, I'm so grateful, being blessed to have gotten on the Auburn City grant, giving me an opportunity to get a job and actually save some money. How many people in their 40s have that opportunity? And, unless you move back home, which then you're dealing with all the family struggles and, to be able to actually save some money after living a life of just throwing it down the toilet. I mean, left and right. And that was actually one of the things, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me, was I had lost my license. My truck had been stolen. I didn't want to report it because I was high all the time, didn't want to deal with the cops. When my dealer pulled up in a new truck that essentially I had paid for, and I had asked him to give me extra than what I had money for. And I don't even know if I can say this here, but he told me, suck my dick. And I was like, hold on, I just paid for that truck. And this is the response. And something in my head clicked and went, what are you doing? You're busting your butt working 40, 50, 60 hours a week welding. It's not an easy job. It's dangerous. It's hot. It's, you know what I mean? Working in the middle of the night. And and something just clicked. And from that point was when I started, even though I stumbled several times in the beginning, that was when I started my recovery journey. And today I have a job. I'm a reliable employee that shows up on time most of the time. I still have trouble with time management. That goes with the mental health struggles. I've got ADHD. It's part of that. But learning about my flaws, I'm not sure what to call it at this point, but learning about my character defects, as we would say, and being able to address them from a point of knowing, okay, now I know I have trouble with time management. Sure. I set more alarms. I have more clocks around my house. I have to be more vigilant of, okay, what time is it? How much time have I been, doing this particular task? And there's so many things that I have learned in recovery. And it's more than just, in the beginning, yes, it's getting off the substances. But if you can really dig in and if you have the desire to grow, it's just incredible the things you can discover about yourself and the confidence it builds when you realize that you don't have to be a product of your environment, that you have the power to change. And then when you are surrounded by communities of people, like I said, I have We Care, I have the 12-step groups that I'm involved in, I have AAHAA. To be surrounded by all of those supportive recovery communities is what's made the difference for me. And living my whole life as, the lone wolf, I've got it, I can do it. And that's a product of my environment. When you can't rely on the people around you, you go, okay, I'll figure out how to do it myself. And that's great in, say, wartime when there's chaos going on. But in, standard everyday life, it's easier to be able to get along with people. And, we're communal creatures. We do belong in a community. And it's absolutely vital to have some sort of recovery community, whether you find it in your church, your family. There's multiple recovery groups out there, 12-step, there's Recovery Beyond, there's Celebrate Recovery. There's multiple. There was even Buddhism one that I had learned about when I first moved here. So there's so many different options out there. Recovery does not look the same to any of us, right? Right. Absolutely different route for everybody. But in all of the struggles I've gone through in recovery and the tears and the scraped knees of falling on my face, I have to say it's so worth it to be able to look at myself in the mirror and be proud of the woman I see looking back and to know who I see, to look at somebody and know where their values lie and what they will and won't put up with, what they love and don't love, things like that. So yeah, it's an incredible thing. It's empowering to be able to look at yourself and go, okay, I kind of have an idea of who I am and where I'm going and what I want out of life, instead of feeling like a pinball, just kind of being bounced around by life. And that was what I felt like most of my life. So you get into a recovery community and you feel more cradled and as we say, we'll love you until you love yourself. Yeah. And that's what I found here in Washington.
That's awesome. So tell me about, what do you do now to maintain what you have? What do you suggest for other people that are maybe coming down that same path, other women, right? Mm-hmm. That get clean, get sober, but they need more than just that. Well, what do you do?
Right. Yeah. That's an important thing. I know one thing, if you're involved in 12-step, I recently got a sponsor. Okay. And even if you're not involved in 12 steps, if you can get a recovery buddy, somebody that you can call, sometimes it might be, 2 a.m, you can't sleep, you want to go out and use because of whatever stressor is keeping you up, somebody that you can call. somebody you can trust, whether it's a family member, like I said, a pastor, somebody from a school, something. Another thing, I pray every day, every morning when I wake up. I usually start with the Serenity Prayer, and throughout the day. It's funny for me to even talk about this because I've been a person who I used to tease my religious friends about their beliefs, and I was never an atheist, but I definitely didn't believe that if there was a God that it had any kind of care or concern for us. I figured we were some kind of science experiment, and God was like the mean kid up there with the magnifying glass. That was how I looked at it. So for me to talk to a higher power today, which I refer to as creator, universe, divine spirit, higher power, just like us, we've got multiple names, babe, sis, darling, hey, you, we've got multiple names we go by. So I don't see the trouble in that. And, having that one, knowing that I don't have to be in control is so freeing, but also I don't get to be in control. It helps put me in a position in my place, helps keep me in my lane. I'm not the center of the universe. Like I said, in the beginning, you don't have to believe in God. You just have to know you're not it, thinking that you can control and manipulate things. So that's a big thing, is acceptance. That was, I think, one of the hardest lessons for me to learn, but one of the ones I'm most grateful for learning, being in sober living. I am very neat and tidy and OCD and living with multiple people, and everybody has their different habits. And every day I had to practice acceptance. And I mean, this is where praying came in for me, where, I walk in and I see dirt in a corner, and I have to keep my head at eye level. And I'm thinking, and I'm in my head going, God help me have tolerance for these people. God help me have love for these people, and it's like, and I realized I used to pray a lot more in my addiction than I have in recovery. Oh, God, wow. Please don't let that cop turn around. God, please let the judge be in a good mood today. Although I wasn't saying God, it was, and you're driving in the middle of the night, doing nefarious things. Please don't let that cop turn around. Well, who the hell was I talking to? So it wasn't that hard of a transition, to that. And I talk to myself when I'm alone too. So that's a big thing, was I started talking to myself out loud. I think one thing, the simplest words that we all say so often to somebody else, but rarely say to ourselves, it's going to be okay. How many times have, you start getting into this anxiety spiral to just say out loud to yourself, Rachel, it's going to be okay. It's amazing how powerful those words are. When somebody else says them, do you think about how that feels? So that was one thing, was to start talking to myself. When somebody told me you have to reparent yourself, I thought, well, okay, how do you do that? Not by thinking to yourself. Mm-hmm.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I say that to a lot of people that will start saying something like they're going through a tough time, or, something happened, or they're worried about something. And I say that to my boys all the time. I go, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
You'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I know there's times where I can say that to myself and I don't feel like I'm okay, but I know once the dust settles, I'll be okay. Right.
Yeah.
Once I get through that moment, I'll be okay. But you're right. It's hard to say it to yourself and internalize that versus say it to somebody else. Like it's water off your back. Right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to internalize that sometimes.
Most definitely. That one thing that helped me with that was sticky notes. I, in my entire recovery, have posted sticky notes up around my room. And, when I hear a phrase like that, say in a meeting or on a podcast or a YouTube self-help video, I'll write it on a Post-it note and stick it up in my room until, and weeks later I'll come across the next new flavor that I like and I'll, put it up somewhere. And
that's awesome.
That's a cool that's a big thing that I've done too, is affirmations. I've done a lot of, when I sleep at night, wearing earbuds and listening to either affirmations on a low volume or subliminal affirmations. Music, I got a lot into, I made a playlist of my favorite songs, and there's nothing better than when I'm in a funky mood to put on that playlist. There's always that one song, that happy song. Get happy. I can't help but tap my feet when that song comes on. So, make you a good playlist, whether it's movies, TV shows. I recommend music. Get up off the couch and move. Whether it's, moving your bum while you're mixing your coffee or whatever, get moving. That's another thing, is learning, dopamine is what we're seeking in addiction. So learning what releases dopamine from your brain. Exercise is a good one, but nobody ever wants to do that, right? Eat right, drink water, exercise. They really do make you feel better. And I would tell everybody do those 3 things, but nobody ever wants to do them. They want the magic or the fun pill. Sleeping on a good schedule. That was a big thing for me. And I had to go to my doctor and get some medication to help me sleep, because I have trouble staying asleep. Takes me an hour to fall asleep, and then, wake up at 2:00 and I can't go back to sleep till 4:00 in the morning. That's hard when you've got to be up for work. So, getting on a good sleep schedule, eating healthier. And I'm still struggling to cut back from sugar. I noticed that when I eat heavy on sugar, that I'm a lot more sluggish. So being healthy really has a lot to do with it. But going back to what I was saying, just moving at all releases endorphins. So even if it's get up off the couch and go get the mail, make it a regular habit, walk down to the corner store and buy your favorite candy bar. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be, there's no perfect solution. You know what I mean? Like I said, recovery is different for all of us. Get your body moving. And part of building that community and having a community too is find people you can go do things with. Start getting up and out of the house, because isolating, I still have trouble with that. I still like to isolate. I like to be alone with my thoughts, which is not healthy for most of us. So yeah, get out, get moving, try to go out and do things with people. Even if you don't really want to get close to anybody, go to the farmer's market and walk around just where you're in that, the group, and then where you're getting the energy of other people. You're out, get a little bit of sun on your face. That was a big thing for me too, which is difficult here. Moving from Florida, I struggle with that. But any day that the sun is out, I make it a point to go out and let the sun on my face for a minute. It really is healthy for us. Vitamin D. Like I said, nobody wants to talk about the boring stuff, but it really does. And if you can do, treat it like a buffet. Pick the things that you want that work for you. Finding a hobby. I started getting back into crafts. I started crocheting again, making little miniature models, painting, coloring. I've tried, and of course I've had to go out and buy all the stuff to do it, but so, find things that you enjoy. The whole point is to get your brain to start releasing dopamine again. Because, we don't find joy in anything in the end of our addictions. So you have to start training your brain to, one of the biggest dopamine releases for me is when I accomplish a goal. When I set a goal and I actually hit that, and then I get to feel that accomplishment, and there's often struggles that we have to overcome in achieving a goal. So when you can overcome obstacles and actually get to something, the rewarding feeling with that. So yeah, find things that you enjoy. Music. I watched a lot of stand-up comedy in the beginning. I wasn't really feeling it, but you watch enough of, say Kevin Hart, and he says the same dumb thing enough times, you're going to start laughing eventually, and yes, laughter, like they say, it's contagious, and it's the best medicine. It releases endorphins. It helps release, it helps calm down our cortisol. Find things that you enjoy, find people you enjoy being around. Treat your body better. You know what I mean? If you're reparenting yourself, think of yourself as a 3-year-old, or, I'm almost 3 years in sobriety. So in the program, we like to say, I'm, nearly 3 years old. So if I'm a 3-year-old, okay, I need to maybe take a nap in the afternoon so I'm not grumpy. I need to make sure that I eat regularly so I don't get hangry. I need to make sure that I go to bed on time so I don't wake up grumpy and with dark circles under my eyes, and all day people are going, "Oh, are you okay?" which gets up under your skin. And you know what I mean? If you can learn avoidance with a lot of things, preventative is a lot better than the end result for me. And learning about yourself. There's so many ways to do it. Like I said, I did a lot of it through IOP. There's worksheets. You can go on YouTube, the internet, and find, whatever it is that's rolling around in your mind. Oh, I wonder how, I stopped being depressed. Google, stopping depression. You'd be amazed what you can find on Google. And that just leads me down other rabbit holes. So yeah, I do a lot of learning about myself, and, I think another hard lesson I had to learn was the truth hurts, and that's for a reason. if somebody says something to you like, wow, you're really quick to react to, this. If that sucks to hear, it's probably for a reason. And that was one of the tougher things I had to, one of the harder humps for me to get over was, but I appreciate it now that when somebody says something, it gives me a starting point of what to look at. If somebody says, hey, you've got to have a hard time being honest, or, something, you go, okay, let me look at that. What's causing me to be dishonest? In what situations am I dishonest? Why am I being that way? Is it because is it ego? Am I trying to look better? Am I trying to appear powerful because I feel weak and helpless? So that was one thing I learned about my anger, was that my anger helps me feel big and powerful and strong. So when I'm feeling helpless, or even like I have no direction, I'm without guidance, that when you feel big and strong and powerful, it doesn't really matter where you go or what you do because you're the big powerful, you know what I mean? It makes a lot of sense when you put it that way. So I've done a lot to learn about myself and areas I struggle, and also focusing on your assets, remembering that you are not all bad. You are not the things you've done. You are a person who has had bad habits that you need to change. And it, when you can focus on the little things of, okay, I'm late all the time. Okay, start setting your alarm 5 minutes early every morning. If you can take little steps towards your goal, and then eventually you find, hey, I'm getting up at 7 o'clock every morning. It took me 20 years to be able to do that, because you're not so focused on trying to get your fix or to be numb, that you can actually focus on little things like that. Like, oh, this is a problem. Let me try to fix it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you here. Rachel's one of our alumni here. As she mentioned, she has moved on and lives in her own place and has a job, and things are going good for her right now. And we're really proud of you.
Thank you, Mark.
Proud of you. And I really appreciate you sharing the story about you coming in here and then wanting to storm out of here and pausing and coming back. And because of that, you're sitting right here, right? Right
sure.
Here, right now. And all these wonderful things that you've learned and you've done. And I really appreciate you sharing your story. And for those of you out there that get into a similar situation where you don't think you can do something different than you're doing now, I hope this story resonates with you, because there's a lot of things that she went through on her journey to get here today, to do what she's doing today, to turn her life around. And she said something earlier about, you just have to have the desire to do it. And it doesn't mean you're not going to ever fall down. Doesn't mean you're never going to take a step backwards, but it's just about getting up and dusting yourself off and keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
Right? So again, thank you for coming in and sharing your testimony. It was powerful. It gave me goosebumps, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
So have a wonderful day, and we love you, Rachel.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much.